Hey, everybody, welcome to another Super Bowl 57 preview issue. Fill in the mic. As always, I'm Darren Michael, and with me, the man who likes to call himself Super Phil, but you may know him better as Dak Pressville, Mr. Phil Calise. Phil, how are you today?
I'm happy. Super Bowl week. We're getting the show off a little early, so that's exciting. So we got a lot to cover, but it's Super Bowl week. How could you not be excited? Only I'd have a bigger smile if the Jets were in it, but I've come to grips with that's never happening. So I gotta be excited for just Super Bowl week. It's here again. You got your Jet. I like it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
nice and
baby.
neutral. That's nice and
NFL.
neutral.
NFL.
Roger Goodell would approve. Nice job.
Well, Uncle Roger and I are pretty tight. So, I'm so excited. We've been able to. We're bringing a friend back to the show. You may know him as Money Marc, but I think his new name might be Mattress Marc for placing the big bets like Mattress Mac and having them pay off. Marc, what's going on, my man?
No, what's going on, guys? Great to be here. Thanks for having me. That Mattress Marc, I kind of like it and I kind of hate it. I mean, as a Phillies fan, having Mattress Mac come in and drop that change and win the World Series really kind of ticked us a lot of us off. But he is a good guy, right? If I put my fandom away, which is hard to do as an Eagles fan, Philly fan, he's a good guy. So I got mixed feelings about that nickname. I'm gonna stick with Money Marc. Kind of like that. Got some live bets that may pay off for me this year. So pretty excited about that. Thanks for having me on.
Good man.
No, it's nice to have an authentic Eagle fan on for Super Bowl week where the Eagles are in it. And I gotta say, I mean, as a kid who grew up in New York, who's a New York sports fan, definitely envious of the run of Philadelphia sports of late. I mean, I'm a little bit of a unique baseball fan in that, like, I'm a Mets fan who doesn't hate Philadelphia as much as a lot of Met fans do, and I'm a Jet fan, so I don't hate the Eagles at all because there's no rivalry there. So I'm not like as big an anti Philly fan, but I appreciate the success Philadelphia's had of late. Between baseball, a good basketball team, got a lot of good things going on. Villanova did a really good job for a while in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if you're a Villanova fan, but I mean, a lot of good things going on.
Yeah, my cousin went to Villanova, so definitely there's some family ties there. But my daughter goes to Penn State. They won the Rose Bowl, finished 7th.
It's a good time.
I mean, I know this isn't a big sport, but Major League Soccer, the Union were in the MLS Cup, and one of the most exciting soccer games I think I've ever seen, where they went into overtime and then went to penalty kicks. Unfortunately, they lost, but the goalkeeper got injured, basically broke his leg in the last play for LA. And a Philadelphia native son, who was the backup goalkeeper for LA, who was Philadelphia Union's former goalkeeper, saved 3 penalty kicks to win it for LA. So it was very bitter at the time that the Union lost, but having one of Philly's own kind of save the day and be the hero is kind of cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I don't like the trend so far. Union lose, Phillies lose, Eagles, TBD. So hopefully we can break that streak.
Well, we'll see what happens. Listen, guys, it's exciting. It's February 12th in Glendale, Arizona, which, that's where you want to have the Super Bowl, 6:30 p.m. Phillies favored by 1.5 points. Over-under is 50 points. Before we get into it, I want to throw a trivia question out there for you guys. And let's see if either of you guys can figure it out. I'm gonna let if you think you've got an answer, don't tell me what it is. Just tell me that you think you've got the answer, all right? In the history of the Super Bowl, there's been 7 father-son combinations that have both won the Super Bowl. Can you name any of them? It's a tough question, man. I'm telling you. I told you before the show that I thought
there's 7 father-son combos that have won the Super Bowl. And when you say won the Super Bowl, you're not referring to as coach, as players. Got it. Yes. Okay. Just want to clarify that. Yeah.
As a player. And if you guys need some hints, I can always throw some hints out there.
Yeah, I got nothing right now.
I mean, nothing is immediately coming to mind. Like, wrong answers are coming to mind.
Yeah,
that I know are like answers I know are wrong are coming to mind.
You're just trying to pick up guys. If you're trying to pick guys that have the same last name, like, okay, how many Smiths are there?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
It's a tough one, man.
No, nothing's coming to mind.
Oh, I'm a little surprised with Marc being an Eagles fan that he didn't get this, but I'm going to give you guys a hint, and we'll see if either of you can figure this one out. All right. There is one in which the father won 2 Super Bowls, and each of the sons won a Super Bowl, and they're punters.
This is the one that's directed more at Marc.
No, this would be the one that would be directed more at.
I mean, the Eagles only won 1 Super Bowl. Like, how could there be like the father and son would have to play in the same Super Bowl? So I don't know how the Eagles fan would get this one, but
no, not the same team. Just each won a Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
Just won a Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah,
I tough for the Eagles.
I mean, I got nothing with punters, man. I got nothing.
All right. Well, how about? Yeah.
No, I got nothing.
You actually have one because he won. One of these guys won, not punters, but another guys. The father is in the Hall of Fame, and the son was a defensive lineman on the Eagles' last win. I'm pretty sure he was actually. You know what? Maybe I'm wrong.
Every once in a while, Darren gives me the old, I screwed up, and I set you up, and I gave you the business, telling you you're a fool, and then he gives you the mea culpa at the last second. Oh, my bad.
I know. Okay, all right. I'm gonna tell you the punter, the Colquitt family.
Okay.
Oh, of course, the Colquitts.
Yeah. I thought they were dairy farmers, but I guess they did punt as well. That's
Greg,
nice.
Britton, and Dustin. Dustin won with the Chiefs.
Nice.
And these guys each played like 20 years. I mean, so these guys are like
serious. That shows how much we're locked into the punting industry.
Know, by the way, nothing better than a punting trivia question to kick off a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing better.
If you haven't stuck with us till this point, audience, we've had MLS soccer references and
can only go up from
families.
Nice.
All right. How about this one? All right. How about Bob and Brian Greasy?
Okay.
Well, certainly the name, yes. I didn't realize they both won. Okay.
All right. And how about this one, right? This guy, he's a Hall of Famer known for his famous flat top haircut.
Oh, what's his face?
Yes.
Howie Long.
Howie Long and who?
Chris Long. Oh, Chris Long. I should have got that.
Chris Long, it was with
that was the most makeable putt we had on this one so
far. You guys insisted. I told you it was going to be a tough trivia question. You insisted me throwing it out there. The only one that got it right was me.
Yeah,
sure. You were perfect.
I knew the Colquitts. I also knew. I also knew Bruce and Bruce Davis. Did you know those guys?
Bruce and Bruce Davis.
Big Bruce, little Bruce. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How about the Diassi father-son, Steve and Zach Diassi?
Patriots?
Well, Steve was on the Giants.
No,
I don't know what Zach was. How about Emery and Aaron Moorhead? You guys don't know who those guys are.
The Moorheads, yeah.
Now, how about this one? Ronnie Lott and Ryan, is it Nace? Nace. I don't know. I can't read my own.
We all know Ronnie Lott, and the other one, no.
Ronnie Lott only won 4. So anyway, interesting. So let's just dive right into it, guys. And I just wanted to start, and I wanted to kind of throw something out there. And Phil, I'm gonna throw this over to you because I know you like to rant. What do you think about this 2-week waiting period?
I'm not a fan of it. I feel like you lose a little bit of the just the flow of the season. It's typically week to week, the NFL, once it kicks off, you get it every Sunday. In the biggest game of the year, I get from a corporate perspective, I get from just a logistics, the travel, everything that goes with it. I completely understand why they want the 2 weeks. But again, we always have to remember the Super Bowl. So the NFL, which is my favorite sport to view, not my favorite sport, but my favorite sport to view on TV, it's geared towards, the fans week to week. And then the fans become very secondary with the Super Bowl. Then it all becomes big boxes and huge money and celebrities and people that don't even root for either team there. So goes with the pomp and circumstance of the Super Bowl is that it's really not for the Eagle fans, the diehard Eagle or Chief fans. It's for everybody else, right? For one day. It's why it's in a warm weather place. It's why it's designed the way it is. So I get the 2 weeks. Where it really pays or where it has a benefit is if there are little lingering injuries, people can be their best selves for the Super Bowl. So I do like that. But from just me selfishly as a fan, waiting 14 days basically from when I watch the confetti drop in the title games to then get the kickoff. And to be honest, if I'm going to throw an extra little wrinkle, the 9-hour preview shows that happened that day, all of it I could do without, to get to the fight, friggin' get to the kickoff. So for me, I'm like an old school football fan. I like the game. That's what I like. I don't like all the other crap. So the Super Bowl has never been my most favorite. The pomp and circumstance has never been something I love. So I'd love the week, run it right back, get the teams right there like you would, right? You finish a game, you go travel out the next day, get to the city, do the couple of day, hoopla that you got to do and get right to the game. But it's not going to happen. We're not going to see that again, I don't think.
Well, Mark, what do you think about that? Do you agree with Phil, or you think the 2 weeks is important? I know you're the guy that gets up at 9 a.m. Super Bowl Sunday. You're already dressed in your full Eagles uniform. You want to watch the 15 hours of pregame, but do you agree with what Phil is saying? Would you rather see the Super Bowl just the next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just becomes ridiculous. I mean, once you get into that second week and you watch some of these, background stories they're doing on backup punters that came from like Mississippi and their brother was like in the army and, the tears start rolling. It's like, come on, man. Like, I get that. Like, I get there's human stories in the NFL and they're important, but they run out of material. Like how many segments are they going to do on Patrick Mahomes' ankle, for the next 2 weeks, right? They're going to talk to high ankle sprain specialist from, Switzerland that they fly in. They're going to interview him like 60-minute style, 2020, whatever you want to talk about. And it's going to be absurd, right? And they're going to talk to Mahomes. He's like, my ankle's fine. Like, he won't say anything, right? So the level of analysis paralysis that's going to happen just gets absurd. So I'm totally with Super Phil here. And I definitely think, 1 week, and the biggest elephant in the room is put it on a freaking Saturday or make Monday a federal holiday. Like, what the hell are you doing? The United States and the world loses like so much productivity on that Monday. Shift it to a Saturday, give us a day to rest, afterwards. Or make it a federal holiday, one or the other.
Well, it's funny too that you brought that up because Darren, we've ranted about that. Long before we did podcasts, I always said to you, they just need to, and then they added the 17th game, so it's perfect. To me, the way to do it, and they don't have to change anything else, is 2 byes during the season, and then you end it President's Day, right? You keep it on a Sunday because they'll never move off Sunday because it's much more of a TV day, right? All the analysis shows 6:30 kickoffs are the time on Sunday, but just make it one more. You just need to slide it one more week now. You have President's Weekend. So one extra bye week, it keeps people fresher during the season. I know as fans, do we want our team to be off 2 weeks a season? Maybe not, but we could deal with it over the course of a football season. I think I would sign up for that. Better football too, right? If you build a early bye week for everybody and then a later bye week, then you don't get screwed. Every year, you always look when the schedule comes out, if you're like me, and you go, the Jets got bye week 13, that's too late, or bye week 4, that's way too early. So now you get a chance to give everybody an early one, everybody a later one, and you get to President's Weekend. So it's an easy solve for the NFL now.
Yeah, well, I agree. I definitely agree.
Look, we're all agreeing on everything today.
It's unbelievable. Well, let's see if we can agree with our with the next thing we're going to talk about here. Let's talk about just the teams in general, okay? And I'm going to throw out a couple things. I mean, let's talk about Philadelphia. Let's talk about them from an offensive perspective. If you look at them, they actually have the number 3 total offense, best offense in football, number 3 points per game at 28.1. They're also the number 1 defense. They're number 1 against the pass. They're number 17 against the rush. They're number 2 total, giving up 28.1 points per game. So, and number 1 overall in 32 rushing touchdowns. So it's a pretty solid team if you're looking at it from an offense and defensive perspective. Then you got KC a little bit different. Their 41 passing touchdowns were number 1 in football. Offensively, number 1 in the pass, number 20 in the rush, number 1 total offense, number 1 points per game at 29.2. Defense is another story. Number 18 against the pass, number 8 against the rush, number 11 total, giving up 21.7 points per game. So I'm going to throw it out to you, Mark, and I want you to tell me, is this the most complete Eagles team that you've ever seen? And what do you think their, if they have a weakness, what do you think their weakness would be?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most complete Eagles team I've seen. I mean, you could argue some of the Buddy Ryan teams back in the day with the defenses that he had when he kind of went from the Bears in the '80s like over to the Eagles and brought that defense was world class defense. The offense was
Yeah.
but I think on both sides of the ball, it's hard to argue with this team being so strong. I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts, who really has ascended this year. There was a lot of questions in Philly and in general. How's he going to pan out? What's he going to do? I mean, he went from Alabama to Oklahoma. He won the Heisman Trophy. He won a championship. He's in the NFL now, and he's turned the corner. And it's a very similar year to 2017 because what happened in 2017, Carson Wentz was behind the number one offensive line in football. What happened this year? Jalen Hurts is behind the number one offensive line in football, which you didn't mention, but they are ranked, clearly number one. Kansas City's very close, close second or third. So, Jalen is definitely benefiting by having that line, having himself be a double threat. And the signing of A.J. Brown, I mean, it's unquestionable. Like that was the piece they needed to really get over the hump, to have that big, strong receiver to complement Devonta Smith, who stretches out the field. Dallas Goedert's been playing exceptionally well at tight end. Miles Sanders, really solid running back. And they do kind of a running back by committee. I mean, they get Gainwell in there. They get, Boston Scott, the giant killer. They get him in there, and it's a really, really tough offense to slow down. Now, they did benefit by having a very weak schedule, right? The opponents that the Eagles played were not great. But when you look at, the Niners game, the 49ers were ranked number one in defense, going into that game with Bosa having 18 sacks. He was basically shut down. And the Eagles had the benefit of, getting some turnovers from backup, third and fourth string guys. But, they hung 31 points on the Niners. So, that said something to me. Now, what I will say is, as a fan, I'm concerned about Hurts' shoulder still because he did not look like himself in that Niners game. His accuracy throwing the ball, he missed a wide open A.J. Brown by yards, many yards. And there were a lot of bad throws he made. So they switched him and just had him run the second half. And so he kind of won that game, with his legs. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a complete team. Their weakness is if you get A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith hurt, they have zero depth. I mean, they got Quez Watkins, but behind that, there's nobody. So you really become a pretty one-dimensional offense if either of those guys get banged up or can't play. And on defense, I mean, you got linebacker play is solid. The defensive line is amazing. James Bradbury, who nobody even talks about, like he had the third lowest quarterback ranking when throwing against him at 55. So the defense is amazing. So it's going to be interesting. But I don't, to answer your question, I think some of the backups on offense are a little weak. But that's about it. Maybe some special teams play too.
I think that the team is good. The team is a solid, good. I mean, offense, defense. I mean, on both sides of the ball. Phil, let's move over to KC, and we know. Listen, they've got a quarterback who is just, I mean, just unbelievable. And granted, there has been a lot said about his ankle, but the real question here is, you know what? They've got a crazy passing game without the big receivers. They don't have much of a running game. And then conversely, they're not the best when it comes to pass defense, but they're pretty good with rush defense. So how do you see this team matching up with Philadelphia? And what do you think the game plan is for these guys to have some success?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, if you're you don't have to sell anybody on the Kansas City Chiefs, right? In terms of just they got a little New England Patriot feel to them. They've been to 5. They've now completed 5 AFC title games. They're living deep into the playoffs every year. This is their 3rd Super Bowl under Mahomes in his 6-year career, 5 as a starter. So I mean, like you know they're going to be late in the season right there because of the quarterback, right? what I would say is probably the best thing to like about Kansas City as a whole is the quarterback coach combo that have just got all the experience now in the world, that have been there, done this. The moment's not going to be too big for Patrick Mahomes. The moment's not too big for Andy Reid. We didn't even talk about the wrinkle. We'll get to it, but the family stories, right, with the Kelce brothers and with obviously Andy Reid back against his old team. So that's a nice story. There's always a few of them in the Super Bowl, so you got that. Um, what the probably the biggest weakness with Kansas City is, yeah, their running game is wildly inconsistent. Wildly inconsistent. At times it looks like they don't have it, and at times it looks like Andy Reid goes, Mahomes, the hell with it, throw the ball because you're the best option we have anyway. So if you actually look, there was a chunk of the season where the Kansas City Chiefs basically used Jarrett McKinnon catching short passes to be their running game.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I happen to have him in fantasy, so he won me probably like 4 games in a row when he just had an absurd stretch. They got away from McKinnon a little bit. And maybe that's a little bit teams taking him out. Maybe it's Mahomes kind of the wrinkle in the game plan. I think you will see a heavy dose of Jarrett McKinnon dump offs, and you will see a lot of that acting as a run game this Super Bowl. But we say it's the elephant in the room with Mahomes and his ankle and the coverage around it ad nauseum. But I strongly feel like it really is the biggest thing in making me hedge on this game in terms of how much I either like or don't like Kansas City, because I was flabbergasted by the Bengals defensive game plan last week. They did not send a soul at Patrick Mahomes. They treated it like they were going to get front pressure with just their front, sending no one like they did against Josh Allen, which did work. But Mahomes, you had to blitz him. You had to make a move to see if he could move on his ankle. They just didn't do it. I don't get it. The only time he had a run was the last play of the game, and he begrudgingly, took off because it was basically the last play of the game. He got the 10 and got the, what I would like to, refer to as a very ticky-tack foul at the end that gave him the easy field goal to win the game. But I don't think he could have moved last week. The ankle I saw last week, there's no way. The few times he had to drop back and throw off his back foot, he was hobbling back to the sideline. He was hobbling into the huddle. If that Patrick Mahomes shows up this week, I mean, it's a field day on him. It's an absolute field day on him. And it'll be circa, 2 years ago with Tampa's defense driving him crazy, and he wasn't unhealthy that game. That was an offensive line issue. This one will be a him issue. So, their running game's weak. Their defense is better than people give it credit for. Jones, whatever the heck his first name is, absolutely destroyed the Bengals last week.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. He had whatever. He was in the backfield. Burrow had no chance last week with him. He blew up the game many times. The other thing I would say about it, I do think they're a fairly complete team. I said it for weeks and weeks to you. There's going to be a game they miss Tyreek Hill. You don't replace the big play nature of Tyreek Hill. And if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs this year, they don't gash you on the big Tyreek Hill play. They got to go 80 yards. They have to methodically get down the field. They hit a lot of third downs. Mahomes uses his legs when he needs to. A million Kelce first downs. They don't have that deep play gash that Hill gave them.
Yep.
It hasn't burnt them, although they definitely have to be very mindful of like going long drives again. They're just not the team built for the big play now. This feels like, again, I'm maybe going to look wrong. This feels like the week they're going to miss him. And everybody's going to say like they're missing the guy who takes the top off the defense or at least keeps the safeties honest. This feels like the game, right? Like the teams are fairly evenly matched. The Chiefs need a little something, especially if Mahomes can't run. Hill would be that guy. You'd put him in motion. You'd run end arounds. You'd get him the ball in a million ways. He's not there. And so this is the biggest game they're going to play without him. And it feels like this could be the game they miss him. So we'll see. But still should be a good game.
Yeah,
so,
that's a good point. It's a good point. Marc, I'm going to go back over to you. Now, the Eagles, a lot of people don't realize how great their pass rush was this year. They actually were number 1 in the NFL with 70 sacks. So these guys live in the backfield, which is pretty incredible. So I'm going to ask you to put on your defensive coordinator hat right now. To win this game from a defensive perspective, what are you going to do to slow down the high-powered Kansas City offense?
Yeah, I mean, you do what got you there, right? I mean, you talk about a defensive line that's loaded. 4 of the 5 defensive linemen had double-digit sacks.
Wow.
Right? You talk about the Bengals; they couldn't get to Mahomes because they had 30 sacks all year. The Eagles had 70. They were too short of the record by the 84 Bears of 72 sacks.
Yep.
And it is a record that 4 players had double-digit sacks in the NFL. That's a record. How Hassan Reddick is not in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year when he has every single measurable statistic better than Chris Jones, who is in the conversation, makes no sense whatsoever. And think about their backup defensive linemen. You've got Linval Joseph, you've got who is great. You got Robert Quinn, who's off an 18.5 sack season with the Bears last year. You have Ndamukong Suh, right? These guys are on the back end of their career, but they're still like phenomenal, like spots, get them in there to give these other guys a breather. And then you got Jordan Davis from Georgia, rookie sensation, who ran the fastest 40 time of a man over 330 pounds ever in the combine. So you look at that defensive line, they have so much depth on top of the talent that's already there. I think they just keep doing what they're doing. I mean, there's too many guys for the Chiefs to block. The Chiefs have a great offensive line, and giving, Mahomes time is what they're good at, but they're going to struggle here. And I think the way the Chiefs counter it is if you do those little dump off screens, I think that's what the Eagles are most susceptible to, because when you're speed rushing and you're going down the field, those dump off screens leave a big gap behind. And you saw CMC pick up big chunk yards with those types of plays. So if I'm the Chiefs, that's what I do. But if I'm the Eagles, I don't change much. I keep going after, and you gotta put a lot of pressure on Mahomes and sack him a lot. Put that ankle to work, right? Like, you got to tackle him, you got to put pressure on him. And unheralded TJ Edwards, linebacker for the Eagles, he had the 7th most tackles in the NFL at 159 tackles, which is actually second all time on the Eagles. And then you got Gardner Johnson, who is tied for the most interceptions in the league. Again, weak schedule, not the best quarterbacks throwing the ball. So, you've got a little bit of padded stats there, but this team is loaded on defense. And like Phil said, if Mahomes is hobbled, plus all the wide receivers got hurt. So, the some of the deep threats, McCole Hardman, like, he might not even play because of a pelvis issue. I think he's got a pelvis. There's a hip issue. He
definitely has a pelvis, whether it's injured or not.
We
don't know. We don't do that kind of analysis here.
When they have the sideline reporters, Aaron Andrews are like, yeah, he's out with an ankle. Like, they never say like it's an ankle injury. They just say
he's got a pelvis, he's got an ankle, he's got a toe. Yeah. I know. I love it.
He hurt his PP on the last play. Yeah.
But looking at the injury report, McCole Hardman is doubtful. So Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, is terrible.
Even Tony, right? Tony's questionable.
Kadarius Tony's questionable. Juju Smith-Schuster's questionable. The knee.
He's always questionable in life.
Exactly.
No, they're banged up.
Your boy Jerick McKinnon has an ankle injury.
Yep.
They're all
Isaiah Pacheco has a wrist injury. I mean, this team is like devastated, and
they're hitting they needed the 2 weeks. When we talk about the 2 weeks, if they were ever on the 1 week, there'd have been a lot of guys definitely out.
Now, Phil, you heard what our defensive coordinator Money Marc is going to do in this game. What do you think the key is with this incredible defense who's going to put a ton of pressure on Patrick Mahomes? What do you think the key is for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to be successful and have a chance to take this game?
So there's 2 things, and I want to throw this out there because I don't want to forget, and I'm getting old, so I might forget. So I'm going to throw this out there. If the Eagles were a college football, like, the Eagles schedule looks like a college football schedule where you go, man, if you wanted to pick against the Eagles in this game, you go, man, they played such a dog crap schedule this year. Like, how did they navigate a 17-game NFL season and play such, like, whatever? Like, it just was that kind of schedule for them. But they also should be 16-1, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if Hurts doesn't get hurt, they're probably 16-1, which is amazing. They had such a phenomenal year, and their stats were so gaudy.
If I could throw something in on that point, look at the Chiefs' schedule. No one's talking about the easy road they had. If you look at the last 10-day games of the regular season the Chiefs had, they were favored by an average of 10 points a game. An average. So they had their last 10 games when they won 9 out of 10. That was a piece of cake schedule. And they went to overtime with the Titans and the Texans, and they had to go to overtime to beat those garbage teams. So granted, it was dog shit schedule for the Eagles, but they blew out the teams they're supposed to blow out.
Yeah,
the Chiefs went into overtime against teams they should have blown out, and they barely covered those spreads when they were favored. So They also
Yeah.
benefited from a cake schedule.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think going into the season, so I have no dog in the fight. I picked the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl in August, right? Darren can confirm that. Our podcast can confirm that. I like the Eagles. I thought they were the best of a weak conference. I thought the AFC was a murder's row of conference because the best quarterbacks are in the AFC. I don't think anybody disputes that. The Chiefs in general had to have a infinitely tougher title game than obviously the Eagles did.
Yep.
It kind of gets down for me if I'm looking at why the Eagles are a little bit susceptible in this game and like the game plan around what you have to do. What Andy Reid has to first decide, and he had to learn it from the Tampa game, is not to be overconfident that Mahomes cures all. In the Tampa game a couple years ago, nobody had stopped Mahomes, and it was like he's Superman. It doesn't matter if 9 people bring a pressure. He's going to like juke out of 4 people, jump off his left foot and throw a 40-yard seed down the field. Like Reid, to me, in that game was so ill prepared for Tampa and so downplayed the potential danger they could be to Mahomes.
Yeah.
And then they were all shell shocked that Mahomes got destroyed and didn't even make adjustments at half. They just got totally blown out. So I think from that game, they're going to learn their lesson. I think Andy Reid's been up all night for 2 weeks, is going to be 2 weeks trying to figure out how to stop some of the pressure from the Eagles, how to get rid of the ball super quick, right? How to run the ball and force the run game a little bit because he's got to get a little bit of a run game established to take heat off Mahomes, whether they got to go double tight ends and really like just block it up and get McKinnon or get somebody. I think what you'll see Kansas City do is get very creative in the run game with receivers, with little gadget plays that are basically run plays, but they'll come across as Mahomes pass plays. I think you're going to see a ton of that stuff for sure. I think Mahomes is going to have to show the Eagles he can run. And I don't know if he can, but he's going to have to do it once early so they believe there's the potential he could do it. And if he can muster up one RPO where he takes it and they all crash at the running back and he goes 15 around the end or something, that'll maybe loosen it up a little bit. I definitely think they're going to have to do that. But I do think the biggest part of this game, if the Chiefs are going to win, is they're going to dominate the Eagles offense. And I know that sounds crazy, and I don't know if they're going to do it, but I think they're going to have to stop the running game. If I'm playing the Eagles Sunday night, I am all fully vested in making Jalen Hurts beat me with his arm. I am 1000% going to make a kid who's never been in this moment beat me with his arm, and I am not going to let the Eagles gash me running the football. I had no idea what the Niners game plan was, and I know they were shell-shocked once they lost the quarterback, but they let everybody on the Eagles run for 13 yards a clip. They didn't stop anything. They let Jalen, like, they just had a bad game plan to me. And if I'm the Chiefs, I am all in on stopping the run game. And I'm making Jalen Hurts beat me with his legs because that's going to test his shoulder. I'm going to make him beat me throwing the ball deep because that's also going to test his shoulder. I am putting this game, and if Jalen Hurts is either going to be exposed in this game, if I'm calling defense, he's either going to be exposed and everybody's going to go, wow, somebody finally sold out to stop the Eagles run game and made them one-dimensional, or Jalen Hurts is going to be 33 for 37 for 453 yards and 4 touchdowns. But on my watch, it's going to be one or the other. He's going to be exposed, and the Eagle fans are going to go, man, maybe he's really not the answer, or he is going to light the scoreboard up, and the Eagles are going to win by 30. That's my answer in this game if I'm the Chiefs. There's nothing in between. I'm not going to let them do both. I'm totally taking away the running game and making Jalen Hurts beat me. And I don't know what's going to be the outcome of that, but that's how I'm playing the Eagles this week.
All right. So that's good. That's good. So Marc, let me ask you the question then. You know, if Phil as the defensive coordinator is going to do everything he possibly can to stop the run, do you feel confident enough about your passing game that you're going to be able to pull this thing off? And do you think that you would be able to establish the run? And how important do you think it is to kind of stick with the run? Since you guys have done it so well all season.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs' strengths is their pass defense. If you look at ratings, right, they're ranked, I think, 5th or something in pass against the pass, but their run defense is horrific. I think they're rated 18th or something in the NFL, like not very good. I agree with Phil. That would be my plan. I don't think KC can do it. I don't think they can execute stopping the run, especially with the RPO. I mean, Jalen executes that RPO like no one does in the NFL. He is a really, really smart decision maker. He is a threat to run. The guy squats 600 pounds. Like he's like a fullback with running back speed. And, Miles Sanders is quick and elusive, and they rotate those backs in and out to keep them fresh. Plus, he's got AJ Brown, he's got Dallas Goedert, he's got Devontae Smith, all playmakers that can catch the ball.
Yeah.
So you literally have to, with that RPO, you have to prepare for Jalen running, Miles running, or a throw to, AJ across the middle, who is strong as hell, or a deep ball to Devontae. Like, there's so many things coming at you. Like, they don't have the skill and the ability in their players to cover. So if I'm the Eagles, I say, try to stop my run, because you won't be able to. And I'm going to continue to establish the run early on and pound it down your throat until your guys are worn out. And then I'll establish that run, and I'll do a couple of play actions and find some deep balls to AJ and Devontae for quick scores. So I think that is the right plan of action. But because also Jalen's shoulder is still not 100%. Like, you can find articles where they're talking about he's still not right. It's a pretty severe injury that he's working through. And as a fan who's seen every one of his games, he was not as accurate as he normally is in that Niners game. There was something definitely wrong. And so you could see they clearly shifted. I think 3 plays in a row or something, he just ran the ball. Like, he took the snap and just started running. So that to me said, look, they're gonna establish the run, in the second half and win it on the ground. And that's what they did. There were no passing touchdowns at all, which is pretty rare. So I think that Kansas City would be smart to stop the run and get Jalen to throw because of the injury. And because, like Phil said, it's a Super Bowl. He could have nerves. I mean, he was in the national championship game. He's been in big spots. That's college, totally different story. But that's what I would do. I just don't think they're going to have any success, stopping that. I really don't.
Yeah, listen, it's not every day. Like, nobody's really tested him. I totally agree with you, by the way. Like, that's why I'm saying that's the right game plan, and it may not work. But what I'm not going to let the Eagles do is run down my throat from quarter one and make me exhausted by the third quarter. So if they hit on big plays, they're going to have 1.5-minute drives, and I'm going to get Mahomes back on, and I'm going to try to do the opposite to their defense, right? Possess the ball, keep the ball, do whatever. So I think that's still the better way for the Chiefs to lose, and it does set up the idea that Hurts might just have a monster game. But through the playoffs so far, he's got 300 yards passing, 2 TDs total. So nobody's really forced him to throw 35 passes or 40 passes and beat you. And I just think because the Giants didn't have the ability to really do it, they really weren't that good. They just had a great year for what they had talent-wise. And obviously the Niners didn't have complementary football last week, right? They had a defense that was capable of playing well. They had no offense. I kind of throw the Niner game completely out the door. I really do. They had no chance. They were punting 3 plays. The defense was exhausted. The game was close for a little while when the Niners defense thought they had a chance to win. Once they knew it was over, I'm sure, the psychology of that game started getting
you can see the frustration. They late hit Jalen. They did some dirt. Like,
they got
Trent Williams, like, body slammed the one dude, like, at the end of the game. So
listen, they were it's nothing to take away from the Eagles. They had the best road you could possibly have to a Super Bowl. And by the way, I would take it one step further. I think the Bengals would have been an overall tougher game in the Super Bowl this year. When you factor in Mahomes' ankle and you factor in the receiving talent of the Bengals and Burrow having just been there last year and almost beating a really top Rams defense, I would have loved to see Burrow get a second crack back-to-back years with those receivers. I think they were fractionally better than the Chiefs. I don't think it was huge. I do think they were a little better. So I think they even got the better of the possible outcomes in the Super Bowl. I think they got the better team to face.
They got 2 things going against them. One is 3 offensive line starters that are out, right? That's why Burrow got so beat up. And 2 is the Browns beat them 32-13 in the regular season. Any team the Browns can beat by 32-13 is a garbage team. End of story. That's my argument, and I'm sticking with it.
Well,
I mean,
I don't think Joe Burrow, by all ratings, is the best rated quarterback in the NFL. Like, Mahomes is the guy they're crowning after Brady. But right now, if you just look at stats, like,
Burrow had beaten him 3 times. Yeah, I mean, he was 3-0 against Mahomes, and Mahomes got a little bit of a gift call at the end to beat him once finally at home by 3. Burrow is better than Mahomes right now in this moment. He doesn't make a mistake with his arm in terms of, like, he's so accurate. He probably has a little bit of I said to you last week, Darren, it was the first time Mahomes and Burrow matched up where Burrow had the better weapons because now no Tyreek Hill. Jamar Chase might be the best receiver in football. He's certainly in the top 3 or 4. T. Higgins might be the most underrated number 2 receiver in football because he is the best number 2 receiver in football.
Phenomenal.
So I mean, they're really good. I would have just liked to see that matchup. And by the way,
I
it
would
just
too.
makes me think, how bad are the Bills defense that Cincy line dominated them? That same banged up Cincy line dominated them. It's like
It's
crazy
crazy.
that week
It
to
makes
week.
no sense. Yeah.
Crazy. Like that's why you can't bet football sometimes, because you couldn't
No.
square up both of those things back to back weeks happening. So
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, stats
Absolutely
only
insane.
go so far. I mean, I like stats, but they only go so far. I mean, where your heart is, and like, who's hungrier sometimes is who wins, and in the NFL, like any given Sunday, right? That's a saying for a reason.
Oh
Anybody can
yeah.
beat anybody.
Well,
But I just think Burrow, I don't know. I think Burrow and Mahomes are just going to be in the argument for years to come about who's the best quarterback in football.
well, it's why if you're Philly, you want to be in the NFC.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure.
The AFC, I mean, is just
Yeah. Josh
with
Allen.
the ascendance of Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be around, boys. He's not
He's
going
going to be
anywhere.
amazing.
He's going to be the
amazing.
next Andrew Luck, the next, he's got all those quality. He could put a franchise on his back. You could just see the jump he took in year 2 is the jump everybody wants their star to take in year 2. I like Justin Herbert. I think he's really good.
Yeah,
I don't love the Chargers, but I like him a lot. Man, they're so if Aaron Rodgers decides to fall his way to the Raiders or the Jets or wherever, I mean, there's no quarterbacks in the NFC.
Yeah,
it's so weak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing the AFC with quarterbacks.
Well, let me ask you this question, Phil. Plain and simple. Can the Chiefs stop Jalen Hurts? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, they're going. You can stop anybody. You're gonna be able to. I feel this way in the NFL. You could stop anything. It's what you expose in stopping something. If you put 9 in the box and you say I'm taking away Hurts in terms of I'm taking away the Eagles' run game, which by extension is selling out to stop the running part of the RPO, they can take that away, and they can then be left with putting their corners on islands with 2 really talented receivers and see where the dust settles. And that is the game plan they should have. So can they? Yes, it's what they leave open in the process.
The only challenge that I see there, I mean, besides the fact I think Hurts had 15 rushing touchdowns, something ridiculous. So we know what he can do with his legs, but what a lot of people don't even realize when you look at their 2 top receivers, which is Brown and Smith. Brown had 88 catches for 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns. Smith had 95 receptions for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, a lot of people, they talk about Hurts, they talk about his running ability, but man, to have 2 receivers that put up those numbers, that tells you a lot about this guy's passing ability also. So I agree with what you're saying, Phil. I definitely do. Now, Mark, let me throw it over to you, and let's look at it conversely. How is it even possible for the Eagles to stop the one guy in the league that I would say is has completely dominated everybody, and that's Travis Kelce? 110 receptions, 1,338 yards, and 12 touchdowns. This guy, nobody has been able to cover this guy. Can the Eagles do enough to take this guy out of the game?
Well, it's a great question. I think it is the question. I would take a page out of Bill Belichick's book, which is he takes one player, keys on them, and takes them completely out of the game. And for me, it's not Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce. I mean, that guy can beat you so many different ways. You've got your pass rush that's going to put pressure on Mahomes. You got to double Travis Kelce. I mean, especially with the banged up receivers that are out there, and their talented receivers not that great. You've got Darius Slay, you've got James Bradbury, back there. Not to mention Gardner Johnson. I mean, they've got a really good secondary that can, do single coverage or whatever. You have to stop Travis Kelce. That to me is the key to this game. And in my nightmares that I have about this game, I see Travis Kelce catching 3, 4, 5 tight end screens and running for 50 yards, right? Yeah, and I see him catching 2, passes where, again, Travis doesn't even look like he's moving. It looks like he's going so slow. Like, it is just an optical illusion with that guy, but he gets open all the time and he catches the ball all the time. So it's deceptive. Like, you think he's not much, but he is amazing. Yeah. So my nightmares are tight end screens, because the Eagles are susceptible to that with a speed rush. And, Travis Kelce, like, getting loose with, a busted coverage or whatever, because they'll take advantage of that between Mahomes being a phenomenal passer and Kelce being the tight end in football now and maybe ever when he's done playing. That is a dangerous combination. So to me, if the Eagles are going to lose this game, it's going to be on the back of Travis Kelce, and he's going to be MVP.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you think about this whole thing, because each team has such specific strengths, like Phil talked about, you got to take away the Eagles running game. And Mark, you're talking about, hey, you got to take away Casey's passing game. So, it's really interesting. Like, how interesting of a Super Bowl would it be if Hurts has to beat you with his arm and the Chiefs somehow have to beat you with their legs? I mean, I think it could set up for a really, really great game, which is exciting. I want to talk about a few storylines with you guys. And the big storyline that you keep hearing is Andy Reid is going and playing his old team. He made it to the Super Bowl with the Eagles. He was a coach for 14 years there. He won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. So that's the big storyline. But an interesting storyline that I don't think people realize is that the Eagles coach, Nick Sirianni, he actually coached for the Chiefs from 2010 to 2013. And when Andy Reid came into Kansas City, he wasn't kept by Andy Reid. So he was kind of kicked out. So I wonder, Mark, let me throw this over to you. I wonder if Nick Sirianni, if he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder coming from his past experience where he was kind of dumped by the Chiefs, if you think that has any motivation towards him.
Yeah, I mean, Nick's a really interesting guy. I mean, he's obviously, liked by the Eagle fan base because of the results he's getting, but I think he kind of got off on a bad foot with the Eagle fan base when he was really kind of like Oakley dokley, kind of like gee whiz kind of a guy. And that's not the Philly fan base at all.
Not
like
quite.
It's a blue collar, like I'm going to punch you in the mouth. So he's been a little bit of a like acquired taste for a lot of people, a lot of fans. I don't get him as the type of having a chip on his shoulder. Like he's obviously competitive, but again, in the Giants game where they had that camera that was going all the way around him and he's like nodding in the camera as a head coach, like you don't see any head coach do that. And I love Bill Burr's take on that, where he's just like, what is going on with, the NFL right now? You're zooming in on coaches. They're not, it's like wrestling, right? Like, tell me when you saw Tom Landry do something like that, or some of these like Vince Lombardi, some of these more stoic coaches. It's the whole act like you've been there, right? So I just wanted to comment on that a little bit. I think Sirianni's a great coach. Like he's got a mixed feeling by the fan base. But I do think he does have that level of competition, and I do think he would feel like rejected and want to prove something. So I do think he'll be motivated by that factor as well. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know. For me, if nobody needs motivation in the Super Bowl at this point. You're there. You're at the Super Bowl, right? I mean, Nick Sirianni's done a good job. He's a little bit of a loose cannon, a little bit, just the kind of his personality. But listen, I think it plays, listen, it's entertainment. It plays a little bit. I think it's like one of those things where he's got a little bit of that Rex Ryan feel to him as a Jet fan, where it plays until losing happens and then it gets old real quick, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like Rex Ryan, you're with him as a fan, you like it and you can kind of buy into it when things are good. As soon as things go bad, that kind of stuff goes south real quick. So it's fine. I mean, and look, they look like they have a good team for a while, so it may work out just fine for them. But I don't think you need extra motivation in the Super Bowl. This is it. Andy Reid sees the clock ticking on him, right? I mean, just in terms of, let's face it, he don't look like the healthiest dude in the world. He's been around a long time. He's had a lot of bites at the apple. He's got one. I'm sure he feels like he should end up with more than one. Yeah. And I'm sure he's looking at like he's going to have maybe half of Mahomes' career to win a title. The other half's probably going to be another coach. So he's got maybe a few more cracks at this thing. So,
well, listen, I'd say most of the Eagles fans like Andy Reid too. If this wasn't Eagles versus Chiefs, like Chiefs versus anybody else, I think most Eagle fans would be pulling for Andy to win. The most frustrating thing about Andy Reid as a fan of his is his lack of clock management. Like he just is known to be a really poor clock manager.
And Mahomes has hid that a little bit.
Yeah,
Mahomes seems to have it like he's a savant with that stuff, so it's kind of helped him a lot with that.
It has, yeah. We'll see if that happens in the Super Bowl, though.
Well, you know what? Let's get back to Andy Reid for a second, Phil. And I'm going to throw this one out to you. You've got the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes combination, and if they win, they're the 13th quarterback coach combination to win 2 Super Bowls. Do you think that Patrick Mahomes would be as great of a player as he is if he wasn't coached by Andy Reid? Do you think Andy Reid had a big hand in his development? Because let's be honest, he was a great college football player, but I don't think anybody saw him coming into the NFL being what he is today. So what do you think? Do you think Andy Reid gets a lot of credit for that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, unequivocally, as a Jet fan, I don't think every draft pick they've ever made at quarterback was headed for being a disaster. I think a lot of it is the infrastructure around said 21-year-old, right? Like at the end of the day, it takes a lot of factors why these guys ascend or bust. Yes, some on the both ends of the spectrum are just going to make it even in a bad circumstance or are going to fail even in a good circumstance. Yeah. But yeah, where you get drafted as a quarterback means a whole heck of a lot to the future of your career, right? Nothing better than I mean, if you're Mahomes, you have all the talent in the world. You get drafted in the middle to late part of the first round, means you're already on a pretty good team. You have a Hall of Fame coach. You got a great franchise that's had some success, so the fan base isn't a nightmare like Jet fans are who never win. I mean, like, it's a great situation to be drafted into, right? When you're Aaron Rodgers and get drafted by a blue blood franchise that you could sit for a few years, you could learn. Same thing, Mahomes, sit behind Alex Smith until they decided, okay, he's so much more talented, we got to put him in the game. I mean, there's certainly something to be said. Andy Reid's a great coach. He didn't, he's gonna matter to Mahomes' development. Yeah. And I think the infrastructure that these kids get drafted into, whether good or bad, means a whole heck of a lot to the future of their success. But if you're Mahomes and you're as good, and then it all comes together, now it's Hall of Fame level, right? Yeah. Like his success, his talent, the coaching, now you get what you get out of him, which is just incredible. So,
yeah. Let me ask you guys another question. And Marc, I'll throw it out to you first. Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, who do you think is more healthy at this point?
I mean, it's clearly Jalen Hurts is more healthy. I mean, a high ankle sprain is one of the most difficult injuries in the NFL to heal that's not season ending. So, this shoulder, the problem is and you can see in the injury reports, Sirianni kind of does a Belichick. He doesn't tell you what's happening with the injuries. It's just kind of like they're injured. I'm not telling you anything. So you don't really know the severity of Jalen's, but there's a lot of rumors and whispers about his shoulder injury being a lot worse than it kind of is made out to be, and he's playing hurt. So it's a little bit of mystery, but I'd have to say for sure, based on what we know, it's Mahomes, without question. Yeah, that high ankle sprain is, I mean, that's so difficult. I mean, the fact that he's even playing through it, I mean, this guy's he should have a cape. He is a superhero. Yeah, it's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
Listen, on any normal, if this was September, Mahomes would have missed 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt, I feel very confident in that he would have missed some time. And Hurts did miss some time. So I think one of the differences is simply, while Hurts may be banged up at X level, right? And everybody, the old adage in football is that this time of year, everyone's hurt to some degree, but Hurts did get some weeks to get better. Mahomes did not have a chance to. So I fully believe if Mahomes would have injured the ankle this past game, and had 2 full weeks to recover, maybe he's got a little bit of a better shot. But because he played on it hurt, I'm sure he aggravated it further. I don't think there's any way around that. And now he's got to come right back. Yeah, the extra week's going to help, I'm sure. But there's no way he's more than 70% on that ankle. There's just no way, in my opinion. Hurts might be 80, 85. And if he takes a bad hit, it could change everything, right? He takes one hit from Jones, who's 330, and lands on it wrong, and Gardner Minshew's coming in the game, every dollar on the Eagles just goes, oh yeah, because it's instant. You saw it the 2 weeks with Minshew running the team. That the NFL's like that, right? One fall on his shoulder bad, and it's like, holy cow, the game just flipped on its head. So it's possible.
And I was nervous too, in the Niners Eagles game, just seeing Jalen continue to run the ball when they're up 20 whatever to 7.
I'd have pulled him.
I would definitely apply. I kept
because the Niners were taking cheap shots too.
I was screaming at the TV, get him out of there, get him out of there. Yeah. And then he would get up and start limping, and then he got shoved late out of bounds, way late, into the TV cart. He almost went under the freaking TV machine or cart, the carts that they have. So I thought Sirianni should have pulled him way.
That game was over when they didn't have when the Niners told you, when they brought Purdy in and ran 3 plays and punted, the game was over.
It's over.
They conceded. They said, we can't run an offense. The Eagles could have just right there, once they went up 3 touchdowns, just taken Hurts out. There was no reason to expose him to a Niner defensive line that was looking to take cheap shots because they were angry at their situation.
That was a really bad call by Sirianni. Anyway.
It was him. It was them flexing on the Niners. Like, there was a lot of bad blood. There was a lot of anger. They wanted to stick it to him and run up the score, but they risked something in doing it.
Yeah, but the second Hurts gets up and is gimping, like you immediately pull him out. I mean, you got eyeballs in your head. You can see the guy's not feeling great.
That's Sirianni being a little bit too young and cocky, and not being older to say, I won this game. I don't need to win the war and the battle. I won the battle. The war is next week, 2 weeks from now. I got to get to the Super Bowl healthy. That's where Sirianni is a little young and inexperienced.
Agreed.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But you know what's interesting? No matter what comes out of this game, there's one MVP, and that's the most valuable producer. And that is Mrs. Kelce, who produced 2 sons that are finally playing against each other in the Super Bowl. And I believe that's the first time that that's happened, that 2 brothers are playing against each other. Now, the only cool thing about that would be as if they were on the field at the same time. That would be pretty awesome. But pretty exciting. I have to think that the mom is pulling for the less famous Kelce brother, because the other one is clearly on his way to the Hall of Fame. But good for Mrs. Kelce. And no matter what, she is my MVP, most valuable producer of this game.
Are we going to get, all right, over under shots of the parents in the stands in the Super Bowl? Over under. I set it at 3.5. Over under.
It's funny you said it there, because I was going to say 4. So I guess I got to go over.
Yeah. Mark, I'm with you, man. I think that's
going over. And are they would do the dumb, all the dumb prop things? Are they wearing the half jerseys?
Oh, that's the question.
No, I don't think. I mean,
do they do the dad wears the one and the mom wears the other team?
They might do that. I mean, having lived in Cleveland, they're both from the Cleveland area. Yeah, those are also blue collar. By the way, the most loyal fans you've ever find anywhere, the Browns fans.
Yeah,
they stand by their team no matter what.
Yeah,
have to be.
Yeah, you have to be.
But they still support, like, they love their sport teams. Anyway, yeah, I'm going no half jersey.
Half jersey. I think the younger generation pulls off the half jersey more than the older generation. So you might be right on that.
Yeah. Let's all right. So let's go into the end here, guys. Let's try to wrap things up. Phil, I'm going to put it over to you. All right. So as of right now,
before we wrap up, let me just share 2 fun facts.
Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
You guys might find interesting. One is, if you look at the starting offenses for each of the teams, the Eagles drafted every one of their players but one, AJ Brown, and the Chiefs drafted only 5 of their players and have 6 players from other teams. I thought that was interesting. That's a tip of the cap to Howie Roseman. Okay.
Yep.
The second fun fact is, in Super Bowl history, there has only been 3 times, this being the third, where the number 1 passing quarterback by yards faces the number 1 passing defense. Okay. First time was Rich Gannon versus the number 1 Buccaneers defense. He lost. Second time, Peyton Manning with the Broncos versus the number 1 defense, the Seahawks. Seahawks won. And this is the third time. So we'll see if the trend continues.
Interesting. Well, so we've got Philadelphia at -1.5, and we've got the over under at 50. Phil, you did make the famous prediction in August before the season started that the Eagles were going to, was it win the Super Bowl or be in the Super Bowl?
No, I had them losing the Super Bowl.
Okay, so you had them.
I didn't have them losing to the right team either, by the way. So it's a half good pick.
Okay, so but they got there, which is good.
Who did you have as the other team?
I was mocked, by the way, by yours truly across from me here. Mocked when I said Eagles in the Super Bowl. He was just absolutely befuddled by the thought of the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Guys,
I had Bills Eagles in the Super Bowl. I had the Bills Eagles.
This is not about making fun of the better looking guy on the podcast. Okay, this is not about that. So -1.5 and 50 points over under. What are your calls for this game? And what are we going to see that's going to happen?
So we're all working a little, I mean, I'm working a little bit blind here in that there's a whole bunch of questionables in this game, all at receiver. Yeah. I know Mahomes is what he is, so I that's built into the spread, right? Everybody knows Mahomes is gimpy, right? So that's baked into Vegas's spread. At this point, I do think the line has the ability to still move a couple points, at least a point and a half, just because if it was deemed that half the receiving core is out, that's going to move the line a little bit. So I do think, and there's a much better chance the line moves in the Eagles' direction than obviously the Chiefs' direction for sure. What we didn't talk about, and it's always a betting angle I have. So two theories I always have that's worked with me historically, may work against me strong this week, but they do come together, and it's going to be a part of my pick. One is I always subscribe to the theory that I'll take the better quarterback getting points in any game in NFL. If I have the better quarterback and I'm getting points, that's generally something I'm going to lean towards. If I don't have a dog in the fight and I'm just looking for angles, that's something I usually like. The other thing, and me and you always joke about this because we make 1,000 football picks together, is when I think a spread is wrong, right? When I think a spread is just flat wrong, I always joke with you, you got to bet with the opposite of what you feel because Vegas is smarter than you. Yep. This is a game, gentlemen, that screams the spread is wrong. The Eagles should be much bigger favorites in this game. I just flat out should be. Like, they should be bigger favorites. Vegas knows something I don't know when I look at this line, because if I'm setting this line, and I always do this in my own head before it comes out, I had Eagles like -5.5 in my head.
Wow.
That was factoring in Mahomes being gimpy. So don't get me wrong. I don't think it's 5.5 with a healthy Mahomes. I think it's maybe even pick him with a healthy Mahomes, but he's not healthy. And so I find this spread to be really off. Now, the younger Phil Calise would have taken the Chiefs confidently and been like, the spread is just wrong. I know better than Vegas. Yeah. As I've aged, as I've gotten older, and I'd like to think wiser, I usually go, you're an idiot. You're now 40 and you're an idiot for thinking against Vegas. Take the Chiefs because there's something you don't know. And I don't know if it's something I don't know more than Vegas is petrified of making Mahomes a big underdog.
Yeah.
They're just, they don't want to set a line where all the money's going to come in on Mahomes. And the line is, the magic number on a Mahomes line is, think about it. Has Mahomes ever been in a 3.5 point underdog in a game in his career since he started winning? Probably not. And so they don't want a line over 3 because I'm sure they know all money's going to go on Mahomes at that point. So they got to hedge. And so I say all that to say, here's how I think this game unfolds. If I'm right and they do try to stop the run as much as they can, I think Andy Reid on offense is going to try to possess the ball and keep it out of the Eagles' hands desperately. I said earlier, Mahomes and this offense isn't built to go big play. It's not, right, without Hill. So I think it does work to their advantage, try to eat up the clock, lots of third down conversions. One of those quarters, and I know Money Marc's going to hate it, but one of those quarters where he's sitting at home with the little Doritos and a little dip, having a beer, and he's going, why did the Chiefs have the ball the whole freaking first quarter? What the hell happened? Hurts never had the ball, guys. What do you want Hurts to do? Mahomes got the ball 11 minutes of this 13 minutes quarter. I think that's what Andy Reid wants. I think that's what they're going to try to do. And I think if the Chiefs win, this goes way under the over-under. I don't think this is a shootout because I think they do possess the ball, limit the amount of possessions. And so I'm going to default, and I know the Eagles could win this game 37-10. I know they could. I think they have the capability with everything we've talked about. But I'm going to go Chiefs 24, Eagles 23, and the Chiefs win by possessing the ball 38 type minutes in this game. It's like one of those 38 to 22 minute possession games, and you go, you leave this game going, the Eagles were the better team, folks. They were the better team. They were absolutely the better team, and the Chiefs won this game. That's how I think this storyline plays out. So we'll see.
All right, Money Marc, man, what is your ultimate prediction for this game?
Yeah, so I have a very similar gambling philosophy. I mean, you don't call me Money Marc for nothing. This is the second out of the last 3 Super Bowls that I've had a large wager preseason in play in the Super Bowl. The first being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I won. I made that bet in April as soon as they signed Gronk, and I won that bet, some pretty big cash. Did not actually wager last year. This year, this preseason, you guys are going to make fun of me now. I always do 2 to 3 preseason bets. I did the Eagles And actually, they have to have good odds. So I thought the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. Honestly, like that's like the odds-on favorite. You never bet the odds-on favorite because the return's not good enough.
Right.
So
right.
I put money on. I thought the Eagles would get there because I thought it was going to be Eagles Bills as well. Phil, my second team that I'm actually going to put a preseason wager on next year. Get ready to laugh is the Miami Dolphins. I think they ran the end of the season 8 wins in a row, and they started the season hot with Tua. They signed all kinds of talent, and unfortunately, he got concussed like 18 times. He was a rag doll. So that kind of ruined the projection there. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with Sean Payton going to the Broncos. With Russell Wilson, I mean, he's got to return back to the mean. That has to be like a fluke year. So I might put a small wager on the Broncos, knowing that their odds are going to be steep, but I might kind of, go after those teams. But anyway, going back to your original question, I think back to what Phil said, I had the line exactly where he had, like 5.5, Eagles favored. I also believe, okay, this line doesn't make any sense. Vegas knows something, but I have a little bit of a different twist, which is Vegas doesn't try to predict who's going to win the game. Vegas sets the line based on better perception, right? So they're going to want equal amount of action on both sides of that point spread. So it all depends on the perception. If you ever notice, the Cowboys line is always tilted toward the Cowboys more than you think it should, because they're America's team and everybody loves betting for the Cowboys to beat the line. So it's all about better perception. And I think this line is all about Patrick Mahomes and everybody thinking the Eagles had a cakewalk schedule, right? Even through, like you said, Phil, through the playoffs, Giants, a joke, fourth string quarterback, a joke. They had no tests. Everybody rated the Bengals very highly. And the fact that the Chiefs beat the Bengals, I think, shifts the better perception over to the Chiefs side. But I'm not wavering from my original prediction, which is Eagles 34, Chiefs 28-29.
Nice.
34-28, you said? It cut out.
Yeah, 34, Eagles 34, Chiefs 28 or 29, somewhere in there.
Like it.
No, listen, they're both good predictions.
And at least one of those Chiefs scores is going to be a Travis Kelce tight end screen. At least one.
I'm surprised you're not picking a bigger spread in the game, because I really do feel like this is either a Chiefs close win or an Eagles blowout. I don't see the Eagles winning. I really don't see the Eagles winning a close game. I see this going where you're like, yeah, this is what I thought it would be. Like they're just way better, and Mahomes isn't 100%.
It's respect for Mahomes. I'll put it that way. Respect for Mahomes. If I don't have respect for Mahomes, I've got an injured quarterback. And Reid, like you said, the tandem of Reid and Mahomes, they've been there. They've done it. They know how to manage through that type of situation. Nick Sirianni's a rookie, coach for the most part. You got a rookie quarterback for the most part. It's never been there. You've got a lot of new talent there. They had a weak schedule. They coasted through. They weren't challenged at all, in the playoffs. And they're going up against a Chiefs squad that has won a Super Bowl recently. They have one of the best quarterbacks in football. They have the best tight end in football. And, they're susceptible. I'm telling you guys, that screenplay is in my nightmares. I just see Mahomes throwing it to Pacheco. I see him throw it to Travis Kelce. I see him big chunk yards, and I'm going to
McKinnon's the guy to get the ball to
if he's healthy. I mean, he's got the ankle injury. Healthy. Hopefully he's fine. But either of those, like Pacheco's fast as he's super fast. But yeah.
Two things before we go, and Darren, you got to make a prediction too. So we'll close it with your prediction, because you've been doing a great job running things. One is, you get a little bit of a feel if you're rooting for the Chiefs, or if you're picking the Chiefs in the game, you hope it goes a little bit how the NCAA tournament sometimes goes, where a team just coasts through the tournament and then they find themselves in the first close game and they melt under the pressure of it because they haven't been battle tested late in a game, and like they just haven't had to. It's not their fault. They just haven't had to, and it doesn't always go smooth. The Chiefs are obviously battle tested in these close games. They find themselves in close games to bad teams, good teams. It's just kind of how they play right now. They're not so top end talented that they blow out bad teams. To Marc's point earlier, they were in a million close games. They live and breathe in close games, and they're not fazed by close games. So that's never going to get them. Now, can they play a close game? I don't know, but they won't be phased. Where Hurts, he could look around and go, oh, crap, we haven't been in one of these games. He throws one pick he shouldn't throw, and you're like, oh, my God, what happened? So, again, as an Eagle fan, I would be very confident, but I would also understand how, yeah, Mahomes is Mahomes, and you got to respect that. So we'll let you close it. What do you got, Darren? And don't give me it's going to be a tie. You got to make a pick.
Man, wouldn't that be great? The first Super Bowl that ends in a tie. That would be fantastic. It's one of those things that I think just as a football fan, I think you have to be really excited about this and the prospects of what's going on here. The best offense versus the best defense. And I think that is just a recipe for a fun game on paper. That's what it comes down to. And at the end of the day, what do we know? Well, we know that Philadelphia is probably not going to be able to stop Travis Kelce. And we know that the Chiefs are not going to be able to shut down the Eagles' running game and their passing game. So as long as Jalen Hurts' shoulder is okay, I think they've got the better chance of winning this game. And as much as I don't really like the Eagles, I look at this spread and I'm thinking 1.5, and I'm thinking, okay, if Vegas really thought that the Eagles were going to win, then they would make this spread higher to try to get more people to put money on Kansas City. But they're making it lower, so I think you're going to see a lot more people putting money on the Eagles. And I see this game over the next week to probably balloon to maybe a 3-point spread. That's my guess, something like that. But at the end of the day, I look at this whole thing, and it's so tough. I want to go with the Eagles. I want to go with the Chiefs. You can never count out the Andy Reid's, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce combination, because these guys they just know how to win. They've been doing it for years, and they're going to keep doing it. But then the Eagles, they're into the spotlight. Jalen Hurts is a guy that I think he's got a huge chip on his shoulder. I mean, he played so well in Alabama, got run out of town, had to transfer. Then he gets to the NFL. He sits on the bench. He finally gets his opportunity, and here he is. This incredible story of this guy that's dangerous with his legs, and turns out he's dangerous with his arm too. So it's like, on paper, I think it's got the recipe to just be an unbelievably fantastic game. I look at this game as probably being one of the highest watched games of all time, just because everything that's leading up to it is saying this should be a great game. But at the end of the day, I still feel like the Eagles have too many weapons. I agree with what Marc says about getting to the quarterback. I also agree with what Phil's saying that Kansas City is going to want to try to control the ball. But I still feel like Patrick Mahomes wants to throw the ball downfield. And I think that leaves him susceptible to making a mistake with that secondary that's pretty good for the Eagles. So at the end of the day, I think that the Eagles are going to hold off Kansas City. I think that it's going to be a pretty tight game. And I'm going to say it's going to be something like, I'm going to say it's going to be Philadelphia 24, Eagles 21. I mean, Philadelphia 24, Kansas City 21. That's what I'm going to
tease that long enough. My God. About to throw something at you. All right. So we got Marc 34-28 Eagles, Darren 24-21 Eagles, and I got the Chiefs 24-23. So we all picked close games. So nobody took the bait on the blowout. I almost want to go back and take Eagles.
I mean, 6 points is that's a lot of points.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if they.
I got the over. I think.
Yeah, you went over. I went under. I did.
Yeah,
if I'm going to hold true, I feel like the Chiefs aren't winning a shootout. Yeah, I feel like they're going to possess it.
They have to. It's
going to be a good one. It will be interesting to see. We're doing this show on Sunday, the week before the Super Bowl. This line could shift a lot. It really could. I mean, 1.5. It's been stuck at 1.5 all week, but it's the week that really wouldn't change it much. I feel like all the big money comes in the last couple of days. And I think the real injury reports really start getting serious Wednesday, Thursday this week. So I think really that's why the line hasn't moved. If you look, I don't think it's moved at all yet. I think it will start to move. And I do think it can only move one way. I don't think it can move to the Chiefs.
Yep.
I don't think. So
I think we're all in agreement there. Well, guys, listen.
All right.
We're all excited about the Super Bowl. Phil, as always, man, your insights has been incredible. Money Marc, Thank you so much. You've always been a great friend of the show. We always love having you on here, man. Your Philadelphia thoughts and experience and has been super, super valuable today. And guys, let's just hope for a great game, and we'll look forward to coming back. Money Mark, man, I'd love to have you back on our post Super Bowl episode if you're interested.
Yeah,
And,
I'd love to do it.
Yeah, let's do that. We can recap what we heard and what we saw, and see who had some of the better predictions. So, guys, have a great Super Bowl, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Phil and the Mic.
Go Birds.
See ya.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I got to scoot. I'm late.